Welcome to another episode of Breaking Bank. This is your host, Jack McKeag. Check us out on jackmckeg.com or libertyaid.org. And if you have any questions, thoughts, or whatever, contact at jackmckeg.com. Right, that's my name, jackmccaig.com. Contact at jackmckeg.com. Okay, welcome. Here we are. Let's do a Q&A, and we got one here from here's the next question. I have done step 1 in the Debt Savior package. It has now been more than 30 days and I've had no response. What do I do? Isn't there a law that says if they do not respond in 30 days, I get money? Don't they have to respond according to the law? Great questions. According to the law, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, here it is. You can read about it. You can, you can click on each one of these things. The validation of debts, for example, that's what we're talking about, right? And this explains validation, right? There has to be within 30 days. I haven't really looked at this before this question, but, here it is. 30-day period. So you can, anyone can look this over. Validation of debts. See, this is a section of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which any acts, of course, are a part of United States Code, okay, which is the part of the corpus, they call it, of the In God We Trust / USA Inc. So the In God We Trust doing business as, that's called a DBA when you put a / In God We Trust. So this is the corpus, right? There are 3 documents, main documents for a trust, right? Declaration of Trust, Declaration of Independence, right? So, and then the Constitution is the corpus of the trust, and then the beneficial certificates prove that you're a beneficiary of the trust. So that's the birth certificates in the USA. So the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act is a part of the corpus, which the Constitution is the main corpus, right? And then so after that, right, that's the initiation of the United States Code. After that, acts get made to add on to the corpus of the trust. And this is a part of the United States Code here, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, right here. See it? So that's the law. That's one main law. There are others, but this is a main law, and they have to validate the debt within 30 days, and there are many rules. And yes, they owe you money, $1,000. There's a fine if they don't validate the debt within that time. So, that's, they should do it. But so you send letters. That's the Debt Savior, that's part of the Debt Savior program. You send the letters, hey, can you validate the debt, please? And what? They can never do it, right? Because they never have the documents, the original documents, that prove that you owe. Okay, so no, they can never validate the debt. So if every time you send them a validation letter, they were to remove it, then everybody would just have to send them a validation letter, but they don't do that. See, let's all agree that the government and court system never follow the laws unless it's in their own favor. It's some, bankers and lawyers, they all work, and the government, they're all the same exact entity, right? They don't work for, it's a hoax that any lawyers work for people. They just work for the bank. Same with any government, just work for the bank. Okay, that's what they do. So if there are laws, they use them to do their own thing. But if you were to write, a bank and say, can you validate, and they can't, and you remind them, hey, the law says you have to remove this, because it's invalidated debt, then they won't do it. Because why? Then they'd have to do that with every debt they have, because they collect every debt illegally. Every bank does. And so the government, right, they force you to do all this illegal stuff with what? Guns and fear, right? That's what government in place is, to steal only, and no other reason. So This is the law, and they are supposed to follow it, but what they don't until we force them to follow the law. The letters and so on there are set up to force them to do it, but they don't force them. They don't give them reason to. We expose them and put their assets at risk and so on. The rest of the debt savior system. Okay. So, but yeah, here's the law. You can read all about it, every word of it. They're supposed to follow it. Absolutely. They're supposed to, and they never do, unless you force them to. I'd say they never do it. I'd say in about maybe 25% of the case they actually do when you send them the letter. They know they're in the wrong, but this is usually for, like people that you initially didn't get the debt from, maybe like what they call a debt collector, but every lender's a debt collector. But what they call a debt collector, if you're trying to collect a debt, you're a debt collector. The bank is a debt collector anyway, because they didn't originate anything, right? The In God We Trust did. No banks do. They just work for the In God We Trust, but they're not the In God We Trust, so they're not the originator of anything. So they're all debt collectors, every one of them, and they're all liars, and they never have proof. So the other part of the system, right, is where we force them to do it, because we know that they're all dishonest. Every government employee, every banker, a 100% dishonest liar, and collects every debt illegally. Okay, that's just the fact. All right, so get used to that they're all liars, and we must force them to be honest. I know that's maybe not what you were expecting, but that's just a fact of life that we have to get used to, and we have to overcome these liars with truth. And see, they are doing everything illegally. They don't have any paperwork. All they have is forgeries, counterfeits, copies, stuff like that. They don't have anything to prove what they're doing is legal. You were simply requesting the information from them. Could you prove that this debt is owed? And they can never provide it. Now, who should be concerned and fearful and anxious and all that? Not you. Them. And they are after you expose them. So you keep at it. Right? So you do the letters, finish all the letters. That's the first step, really. Completing all the mailing. Then second step is enforcement. Okay? So if you want to get out of your debt legally with no blowback, all and 100% legal. Okay? This is just accounting. This is just proper bookkeeping. Oh, you say I owe a debt. Can you show me the paperwork? I don't want to pay somebody else later. Right? I don't have to pay the same debt again twice. So let me just make sure you have the paperwork. Could I see it? What do you don't have any original paperwork? What are you talking about? How can I owe you? You see, it's the most simple thing on earth. Everyone has been trained to, accept a bunch of bullshit and fancy words. And as bookkeepers and accountants, what do? We audit, right? It's called. We go and look for the paperwork, and then we go, okay, there's the paperwork. And if you don't have it, I don't owe you. That's called business. Like in business, this is the way business can go, right? One, no business happens between businesses. Okay, that's one thing that can happen. That goes on all the time. Nothing. Then, if something does happen between businesses, right? You could pay a business, right? Or they could pay you. Those are the other two options. Wouldn't you prefer to be paid than pay? You see, that's the option. They're giving you the kind of, hey, would you like to pay this debt? We don't have the proof, and you're like, no, thank you. Okay, it's really simple. So get out there and do this work. Great question, good Q&A. Thank you very much. I'm going to get some more of these done. And thanks for joining us. God bless your success.